Hello, future medical professionals. Welcome to an exciting journey into the world of human biology. Today, we are diving deep into Class 11 Biology, Chapter Excretory Products and their Elimination, focusing specifically on the disorders that can affect this vital system. We'll explore everything from basic kidney troubles to advanced treatments and future innovations. Get ready for an insightful session that will take you through easy, medium, hard, and even the hardest concepts, preparing you thoroughly for NET. Let's start our exploration with the basics of kidney disorders. You'll be surprised how common some of these issues are. First, let's talk about kidney stones, also known as renal calculi. Imagine tiny, hard pebbles forming inside your kidneys. That's essentially what they are. These deposits are made of minerals and salts, like calcium oxalate, and can cause excruciating pain as they try to pass. They often form due to concentrated urine, specific dietary habits, or simply not drinking enough water. Next, we have glomerulonephritis, which sounds complex but simply means inflammation of the glomeruli. These are the microscopic filters in your kidneys. When they become inflamed, often after infections like strep throat or due to autoimmune conditions, your kidneys struggle to filter waste and excess fluids, leading to symptoms like swelling and high blood pressure. Understanding these common issues is the first step. Moving on to a more severe condition, renal failure or kidney failure. This is when your kidneys lose their crucial ability to remove waste products and excess fluid from your blood. When this happens, harmful waste builds up in your body, leading to a serious condition called uremia. Renal failure can occur suddenly, which we call acute renal failure, or it can develop gradually over time, known as chronic renal failure. In severe cases, where kidneys can no longer function, treatments like dialysis, an artificial filtering process, or even a kidney transplant become necessary to sustain life. These conditions highlight the critical role kidneys play in maintaining overall health. Time to test your understanding of these basic concepts. Here are 3 practice questions for you. Question 1. Which of the following is a common component of kidney stones? Question 2. Inflammation of the glomeruli is known as what? And question 3. What is the primary treatment for severe renal failure when kidneys cannot filter waste? Pause the video, think about your answers, and consolidate your knowledge. Now, let's deepen our understanding of these excretory disorders. We'll delve into more details about their causes, symptoms, and treatment options. Let's take a closer look at uremia and renal failure. Uremia is not just waste buildup. It's a severe toxic state where nitrogenous waste products like urea and creatinine accumulate in the blood due to advanced kidney failure, impacting almost every organ. We differentiate between acute renal failure, or ARF, which is a sudden and often reversible loss of kidney function, frequently caused by issues like severe dehydration, significant blood loss, or certain medications. In contrast, chronic renal failure, or CRF, is a gradual, progressive, and typically irreversible decline in kidney function over many months or years. Major culprits behind CRF include long-standing diabetes, uncontrolled hypertension, and chronic forms of glomerulonephritis. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for diagnosis and management. Next, let's explore kidney stones in more detail. Their formation mechanism involves urine becoming supersaturated with crystal-forming substances, which then aggregate. There are several types. Calcium stones, mainly calcium oxalate or phosphate, are the most common. Uric acid stones form in acidic urine, often linked to gout. Struvite stones are associated with urinary tract infections, and cystine stones are rarer, resulting from a genetic disorder. Risk factors include low fluid intake, certain diets, and a family history. Symptoms range from intense renal colic pain to blood in urine. Diagnosis involves urinalysis and imaging. Treatment options vary from increasing fluid intake and pain management to advanced procedures like lithotripsy, which uses shock waves to break down stones, or surgical removal for larger, stubborn stones. Finally, let's elaborate on glomerulonephritis, the inflammation of kidney filters. This condition can be acute, developing suddenly, often after a streptococcal infection, known as post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Or it can be chronic, progressing slowly over years, leading to irreversible kidney damage. The underlying causes are often immune-related, where antigen-antibody complexes deposit in the glomeruli, triggering inflammation and damaging the delicate filtration units. This leads to classic symptoms like hematuria, which is color-colored urine, proteinuria, and swelling or edema. Treatment focuses on managing the inflammation, controlling blood pressure, and addressing the underlying cause to prevent further kidney damage. Early intervention is key to preserving kidney function. Now, let's challenge your understanding with 5 medium-level practice questions. Question 1. Which condition is characterized by the accumulation of nitrogenous waste products in the blood due to kidney failure? Question 2. Acute renal failure is generally considered what? Question 3. Which type of kidney stone is most commonly associated with urinary tract infections? Question 4. Hematuria and proteinuria are classic symptoms of which condition? And question 5. Lithotripsy is a common treatment for what? Take your time, think critically, and try to apply the concepts we've just discussed. Alright, let's step up our game. The hard-level content will challenge you with deeper analysis, physiological impacts, and advanced treatment methods. First, let's analyze the systemic impact of uremia. Uremia isn't just a kidney problem, it's a complex syndrome affecting nearly every body system. It causes severe cardiovascular issues like hypertension and pericarditis, neurological symptoms such as uremic encephalopathy and peripheral neuropathy, and hematological problems like anemia due to reduced erythropoietin production, alongside increased bleeding tendencies. The gastrointestinal system also suffers, manifesting as anorexia, nausea, and vomiting. Next, consider the critical role of antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, in kidney function. ADH regulates water reabsorption. Its dysregulation can lead to disorders like diabetes insipidus, where either ADH production is insufficient, central D, or the kidneys fail to respond to it, nephrogenic D, resulting in excessive, dilute urine output. This highlights the intricate hormonal control over renal physiology and how its disruption leads to significant excretory disorders. Now, let's delve into life-saving interventions, dialysis and kidney transplantation. Dialysis is an artificial process to remove waste and excess fluid when kidneys fail. Hemodialysis involves drawing blood out, filtering it through an artificial kidney called a dialyzer with a semi-permeable membrane, and returning the cleaned blood. It typically requires regular clinic visits. In contrast, peritoneal dialysis uses the patient's own peritoneum, the lining of the abdomen, as a natural filter. Dialysate fluid is introduced into the peritoneal cavity, allowing waste exchange, and then drained. This can often be done at home. The ultimate treatment for end-stage renal disease is kidney transplantation, where a healthy donor kidney is surgically implanted. However, this necessitates lifelong immunosuppressive medications to prevent the recipient's immune system from rejecting the new organ, which comes with its own set of challenges like increased infection risk. Finally, let's examine polycystic kidney disease, or PKD, and its genetic underpinnings. PKD is a genetic disorder characterized by the progressive growth of numerous fluid-filled cysts in the kidneys, which gradually impair kidney function. There are two main types: autosomal dominant PKD, or ADPT, which is more common and typically manifests in adulthood, caused primarily by mutations in the PKD1 or PKD2 genes. These genes encode polycystin-1 and polycystin-2 proteins, crucial for cell signaling and tubular development. The other type is autosomal recessive PKD, or ARPT, which is rarer and usually presents in childhood. As cysts enlarge, they replace normal kidney tissue, leading to kidney failure, severe hypertension, and often extrarenal symptoms like liver cysts or intracranial aneurysms. Management focuses on symptomatic treatment, blood pressure control, and eventually, dialysis or transplantation. Let's tackle these 7 hard-level questions to solidify your advanced understanding. Question 1. Which of the following is not a common systemic effect of uremia? Question 2. A patient with diabetes insipidus producing large volumes of dilute urine might have a problem with what? Question 3. Distinguish between hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis in terms of the membrane used for filtration. Question 4. What is the primary challenge in kidney transplantation that necessitates lifelong immunosuppressive therapy? Question 5. Mutations in which genes are primarily associated with autosomal dominant polycystic kidney disease? Question 6. Explain how chronic renal failure can lead to anemia. And question 7. Describe the basic principle by which both hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis remove waste products from the blood. Good luck! Welcome to the hardest level. Here, we'll dive into competitive depth, exploring molecular insights, advanced technologies, and the future of renal care. This is where you truly master the topic. Let's unravel the molecular mechanisms behind kidney stone formation. The primary driver is supersaturation, where urine becomes overly concentrated with crystal-forming salts. This leads to nucleation, either spontaneously or on existing particles, followed by crystal growth and aggregation. Crucially, urine contains natural inhibitors like citrate and magnesium that prevent stone formation. A deficiency in these, or an excess of promoters like calcium and oxalate, tips the balance. Urinary pH is also vital. Acidic urine favors uric acid stones, while alkaline urine promotes calcium phosphate stones. Furthermore, genetic predispositions, involving mutations in genes like SLC26A1 or CLCN5, can significantly increase the risk for specific stone types by affecting ion transporters. Understanding these intricate molecular details is key to preventing recurrence. Next, let's delve deeper into the pathophysiology of glomerular diseases, focusing on immune-mediated injury. Many conditions arise from immune complex deposition, where circulating antigen-antibody complexes get trapped in the glomeruli, triggering severe inflammation. Alternatively, in situ immune complex formation occurs when antibodies directly target antigens within the glomerulus itself, such as in anti-GBM disease. This immune activation often leads to complement activation, releasing inflammatory mediators that recruit leukocytes and directly damage glomerular cells. A critical component of the filtration barrier, podocytes, are frequently injured, leading to their effacement and detachment, resulting in massive proteinuria, characteristic of nephrotic syndrome. Mesangial cell proliferation also contributes to glomerular scarring. Differentiating between syndromes like nephritic, hematuria, hypertension, and nephrotic, massive proteinuria, edema, is crucial for accurate diagnosis and targeted therapy. Let's explore renal osteodystrophy, a complex bone disease arising from chronic kidney disease. This condition stems from 3 main mechanisms. First, phosphate retention, as failing kidneys cannot excrete excess phosphate, leading to hyperphosphatemia. Second, impaired vitamin D activation, because kidneys are vital for converting inactive vitamin D into its active form, calcitriol, which is essential for calcium absorption. Third, these imbalances lead to secondary hyperparathyroidism, where low calcium and high phosphate stimulate the parathyroid glands to overproduce PTH, causing bone breakdown. This results in bone pain and fractures. Moving to advanced treatments, continuous renal replacement therapy, or CRRT, is a sophisticated dialysis technique used for critically ill patients with acute kidney injury. Unlike intermittent hemodialysis, CRRT provides continuous, slow, and gentle fluid and solute removal. This minimizes the hemodynamic instability often seen in critically ill patients, allowing for more precise fluid balance control and better clearance of larger molecules, making it a vital tool in intensive care settings. Finally, let's look at the future: bioartificial kidneys and regenerative medicine. Current therapies like dialysis are life-sustaining but don't fully replicate kidney functions, while transplantation faces donor shortages and lifelong immunosuppression. Bioartificial kidneys aim to overcome these limitations by combining conventional filtration membranes with living renal tubule cells in a bioreactor. These cells perform vital metabolic, reabsorptive, and endocrine functions, mimicking a native kidney. Research is focused on developing fully implantable devices to eliminate external machines. Regenerative medicine offers promising avenues. Stem cell therapy uses pluripotent or renal progenitor cells to repair damaged kidney tissue or grow new kidney structures. Kidney organoids, 3D structures grown from stem cells in vitro, are revolutionizing disease modeling and drug testing, with potential for future transplantation. Gene therapy also holds promise, targeting specific genetic defects in inherited kidney diseases to halt or reverse progression. These innovations represent the forefront of renal care. Now, let's challenge your expertise with the first 5 hardest level questions. Question 1. Explain the concept of supersaturation in the context of kidney stone formation and how it relates to urinary pH for different stone types. Question 2. Contrast the primary pathological features and clinical presentations of nephritic syndrome and nephrotic syndrome, providing an example for each. Question 3. Describe the 3 main mechanisms contributing to renal osteodystrophy in chronic kidney disease. Question 4. What are the key advantages of continuous renal replacement therapy over intermittent hemodialysis, especially for critically ill patients? And question 5. Discuss the role of natural inhibitors in urine in preventing kidney stone formation, naming to such inhibitors. Think deeply and formulate comprehensive answers. Let's continue with the remaining 5 hardest level questions. Question 6. Detail the 2 main types of immune complex deposition in glomerular diseases and provide a specific example for each. Question 7. How do mutations in genes like PKD1 and PKD2 lead to the development of polycystic kidney disease at a cellular level? Question 8. Elaborate on the concept of a bioartificial kidney. What are its intended advantages over traditional dialysis, and what components are typically involved? Question 9. In the context of renal failure, why is erythropoietin administration often a part of the treatment regimen? And question 10. Beyond filtration, what additional functions do the living renal cells in a bioartificial kidney aim to replicate that are absent in conventional dialysis? These questions require deep analytical and integrative thinking. Good luck! And that brings us to the end of our comprehensive session on excretory disorders. We've covered everything from basic definitions to advanced molecular mechanisms and future therapies. I hope this journey has deepened your understanding and boosted your confidence for NEET. For more such in-depth, structured, and engaging educational content, make sure to visit synapse.omaps.in. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for continuous learning. Keep striving for excellence, and we'll see you in the next session. Happy learning!